Thank you, Glenn. Thanks, everybody. That's Neil. I'm Leonard Grossman, Chairman of the Squamish Tribe, home of Seattle. I'd like to welcome you here to the city and here in our territory. The Port Madison Reservation was established by Treaty of 1855 and established that reservation for the Squamish and Duwamish people. And we're very proud to be able to get this opened up and this great conversation with our great leaders here. And Chief Seattle said in his famous speech, which was given down right on the waterfront down here, to Isaac Stevens before the treaty was signed, about every part of this soil is sacred to my people. So I think that's the theme we have today, is that Chief Seattle saw a vision for us trying to protect our natural resources, our water, our air, our ecosystems, all those things that we were gifted by the Creator. And we believe that those things are human and transform themselves to feed us. So we need to treat them just as we treat our fellow human beings and ourselves. So I just hope the conversation is good and put a blessing on this room as we move forward. Ahoy, Chad, I'm finished.
Thank you, Leonard. Appreciate that. So welcome, everybody. I'm Martin LeBlanc with LBC Action. First, I'm the proud son of Ron and Linda, and the father and husband of Mandy and Amelie, who are here. It's great to be here, and I really want to thank all the folks at REI. REI is a real leader in climate action, and they spend every day here as a Washington-based co-op making sure that people are connected to the outdoors. So we just give the REI team a round of applause. I want to thank all of you. I have a close friend, Juan Martinez, who I think actually spoke at the REI Leadership Summit in Oregon, and he says that time is your most precious resource. And that's what all of you are giving today. So thank you all for coming here, because it's a big moment. We have two incredible leaders who we're going to talk to today about really the challenge of our time. I grew up here in Washington. My dad's a dog, my mom's a coug. I just duck at the Apple Cup. But what I learned early on was that the outdoors was such a critical part of the natural environment of my childhood. Growing up to the Olympic National Park, going to Golden Gardens. And when you see the smoke that we had last week, when you see those 100-degree days, this is a different challenge that we've ever faced. And right now is a critical moment in time. And in 2 weeks, you can really highlight and see the difference of a leader like Senator Patty Murray on climate. And we're going to dig in a little bit today on that. So I'd love to just really give a round to our two leaders, Governor Jay Inslee and Senator Patty Murray. I remember working with you, Governor, when you were a representative, and when everyone wasn't talking about climate, you talked about climate from the get-go, and you really now established yourself as the 23rd governor of Washington as a world leader in climate action, and so appreciative of your great work. And then with Senator Murray, I mean, first of all, just a working mom, right? Someone who I know has inspired my daughter through service. Patty's not here to give a soundbite. Senator Murray is here to do work, and she's done work for over 30 years in the Senate on making sure that we have legislation moving forward that protects our climate for our children. So please give a round of a warm applause for Governor Inslee and Senator Patty. Is there any kind of opening statements, Governor, you'd like to kind of talk about this critical moment in time that you see with where we are with climate?
Well, I'm kind of shy to talk about climate change. So, as you know, I've been very reticent. Yes, first off, thank you, REI. I've been a member, I think, since '68. I haven't had a blister wearing REI boots in the last 60 years. So congratulations, REI. What you're doing, opening your incredible facility here. So I brought an exhibit here tonight about why we're here tonight. And his name's Liam. Liam, what's your last name? Wilson, could you stand up for a second, turn around, just face the audience. How old are you, Liam?
I am 10 years old.
Okay, Liam Wilson, 10 years of age. Don't we all agree that Liam needs a senator in the United States Senate to fight climate change so that he can have a viable future and we can keep Washington kids healthy for the next 150 years? And he's got one in Senator Patty Murray. I think that's something to do. Look, we understand this is a moment of great crisis. This is a moment, I would argue this is the most important election in American history, both because we're fighting to preserve democracy, and Senator Murray's a champion on that. Her opponent is not. And we're fighting to preserve the very beauty of Washington State that is so much in question. Liam and his fellows should not have to breathe forest fire smoke the rest of their lives. They should have forests that are healthy, and the only way that's going to happen is if we defeat climate change. And there is no more stark contrast between the incredible record of Senator Patty Murray fighting climate change, bringing clean energy jobs to this state, and giving Liam and his fellows clean air the rest of their lives, compared to her opponent, who has never lifted a finger or said a positive word of what we can do to defeat climate change. It is unbelievable to me that we have her opponent running for the U.S. Senate who is starkly ignoring this threat to our beautiful state. It's really unbelievable to me. She was in a debate a few days ago. She was given like 3 chances to say that we should do something about climate change, and she whiffed all 3 times. 3 strikes and you were out. Then when she was asked about the work that Patty Murray has done to pass the Inflation Act, which is the single most important environmental measure in the history of the United States, and she said, no, if I go to the Senate, I'm not going to do a darn thing about climate change. We need Patty Murray to keep fighting this battle, and I'm glad we're here tonight to make sure she's there. That's how I feel about it. I want to note the kind of moment we're in. It's a very difficult moment, having breathed the smoke that we breathe and see the degradation of our waters, the loss of our salmon, the disappearance of our glacier. You know, I was up at Hidden Peak looking at the Boston Peak and Sahauli Glacier, literally looking at the disappearance of our glaciers, that beautiful white framing of the Cascades and Olympic Mountains. The Olympic Mountains have lost 40% of their ice mass in the last 50 years. It's disappeared. And these glaciers are going to be gone in major parts of the state of Washington if we do not act. So you can get a little bit down when you consider the ramifications of climate change. But I would argue this. This is the best time to be alive, literally in human history. And the reason is, this is the moment of the biggest potential positive action in human history, which is saving our ability to have a habitable planet. There's no other time in human history where so much has been at stake. There's also no other time in human history where we can do such great work, where we are putting people to work in 2 new battery companies in Moses Lake with batteries that can run electric cars and electric buses. Where yesterday we had an effort we got money from the federal government for electric school buses because of Senator Patty Murray's leadership. That was pretty fun. We're flying electric planes. We're building solar panels in Bellingham. We're putting people to work. We're inventing the next level of human innovation. So it is a great time to be alive, and particularly in the next couple of weeks, because we have a chance to make a difference. Every single one of us getting out there and voting for Senator Murray so we can continue this tremendous progress. Now, we got some state legislators. I don't want to ignore them. Patty started her career in the state legislature. I'm also proud to say that we now have the best climate change policies in the state of Washington of any state in the United States, too. I'm proud to be able to say that. And people are going to be able to vote for these legislative races as well. So there's never been so much at stake. There's never a greater contrast between a positive person who cares enough about our kids to fight climate change versus a zero who wants to do zero against climate change. So there's never been a bigger contrast, and we can never do so much, which is to get out and vote and help her. Go get her, Senator Murray. Go get her.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you all so much. What a great crowd. It really feels like I just came home, and I so appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Martin, thank you for your long-time leadership. Working with you has just been awesome. Leonard Forsman, thank you for all the tribes who, from day one, have been part of making sure that we take care of this planet. You guys are awesome. Thank you. And it really is almost frighteningly awesome to sit next to the climate change governor in our country. Jay was talking about climate change before anybody else. Didn't you write the book on this?
I co-authored the book.
Co-authored the book on this. And it's also true. And it has been a struggle at the U.S. Senate level with all of our climate deniers ever getting to the point where we can actually do something about climate. And I am proud of what we did in the Senate this year with a 50-50 Senate, which I know I don't have to tell any of you is really tough, really tough. But we worked really hard, even in the infrastructure bill, making sure that the provisions of that took into account climate justice, which is so important. And then working so hard to finally get the Inflation Reduction Act passed. I will tell you, that was an amazing moment, the biggest investment in climate in the history of this country, from the United States Senate, the Congress, and Biden signed it into law. That was an amazing moment. We are lowering energy costs for families. We are reducing our carbon footprint. We are moving to a new clean energy economy, and a lot of that is going to happen right here, Governor. As he just mentioned, we are set, primed, and ready because of the work our state legislature has done to take advantage of these new jobs and the resources to make sure that we are finding new clean energy. That's going to create jobs here, and we're going to be selling these products overseas instead of buying that gas and oil. I just think that's just such a great story. But it is exciting, and I think what's important to note tonight, and we want to take your questions, so is to just tell you that my opponent has already said that she is not in support of this. And Mitch McConnell has already said that he would repeal it if he got the majority. We cannot let that happen. And for anybody who doesn't think Mitch McConnell will go after this, I will remind all of you, 70 times on the floor of the Senate, he tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act, or Health Care Act. So he means it. He means it. And we cannot, from the Evergreen state, send him the vote to do it, right? So this is a critical election. I am proud to be from Washington State. I grew up here, my family's here. We love this state, we love REI and all of the industry that surrounds our great places that we go to be out in the amazing places we have here. I love bringing United States senators here because they all go, oh my God, why do you even go to DC? I would just stay here. Well, I go there because I want to fight to make sure our state continues to be the beautiful state that we have, and to make sure it is there for you and your generation, Liam. So thank you for being here tonight. You know, this is a critical election. I wasn't joking. My opponent, as Jay just told you, refuses to accept that climate is a real issue. I cannot imagine sending to Washington, D.C. from the Evergreen State someone who is a climate denier. But that will happen if we don't get the vote out. So we are in the last 12 days of this election. Every vote counts. Every action that you all will take will mean a real difference. So I'm excited to be here tonight to answer your questions, but I want to share a personal story with you because I just carry it in my heart and want you to know it. So when we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, Jay knows how this works in the Senate. In order to pass the bill under the rules that we have to get 50 senators, we have to stay on the floor until Republicans stop offering amendments. So we got on the floor, I think it was late Saturday afternoon, and they offered amendment after amendment, 1 minute of debate, and then you vote, and they went on and on and on. They kept, you can bring up any amendment, they kept offering them, it was 24 hours straight. We had no sleep. We didn't get to go home. It was exhausting. We stood there, all 50 of us, together, and beat down every one of their amendments, totally, every one of them, and finally passed that bill late Sunday afternoon. We were exhausted, but we were thrilled. Now, the story I want to share with you is I immediately went to the airport, flew home, and I landed, and I got a text from Tammy Duckworth, who is a member of the Senate Democratic Caucus. She has 2 little kids, and she shared with us that she got home finally late Sunday afternoon after this horrible, long process we went through, and her 4-year-old was really mad at her because she had missed her birthday party. And so Tammy said, I was trying to explain to her what we were doing, and I was really sorry I missed the party. And her daughter, 4 years old, says to her, you mean you did a little bit to save the planet? I'm so glad that you stayed there to do it. We did a little bit to save the planet. That was awesome, and I will carry that with me because, yes, when you work hard and you believe in it and you keep working, you can get things done. We are not done yet. We still have work to do, but we're going to keep working as long as you help us keep a majority in the Senate. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murray and Governor Inslee. I think, you talked about something that's really important, that's teamwork, right? I mean, we think about the year we've had the Seattle Storm or the Mariners or Seahawks are looking pretty good. What makes them great? Teamwork. And I think you see with both at the state level with you, Governor Inslee, and in the Senate with you, Senator Murray, that teamwork is so important. And that's what potentially is at risk if we don't get out that vote in the next 2 weeks. And I want to ask now some questions. Thank you so much to everyone here for providing them. It comes from Ross McFarland, I'm with the Sierra Club. I'm a Sierra Club alumni, so I'll get that little plug in. So this is for you, Senator, but I'd love for you two to engage on this, Governor, because I think it talks about that teamwork and how critical that is. The Inflation Reduction Act was the biggest investment in climate action and environmental justice ever passed by the U.S. Senate. What pieces are you the most proud of? And what do we need to do next?
Well, I just think the potential is so real that we all don't even grasp it yet. I was here in Seattle at a low-income housing construction project about a month and a half ago, where they are working with the utilities, Seattle utilities, to put sun energy, solar panels on the ceiling of the low-income housing project. And I got to talk to some of the people who were going to be in that, living in that, and they were so excited, first of all, that they were going to save money because they had solar panels, but secondly, they were going to be able to sell back what they didn't use, and they actually were going to earn money as low-income people because of the solar panels. I think those kind of projects are amazing for individuals to be able to afford to be a part of protecting our planet by tax credits for buying used and new electric vehicles, for solar panels, for heat pumps. These are things individuals can say, I'm helping my planet, and my government is helping me do that. Those kind of projects, I think, I'm really excited about for people and individuals. I'm also really excited about all the new research we're going to do. Those airplanes that are flying across the sky, we're going to figure out how to make them much more energy efficient. But there's a lot in it.
Thank you, Senator Murray. Governor, would you like to add anything from the state level?
I do, actually. Actually, my favorite part is the millions of dollars that are coming to the state of Washington to put people to work. That's my favorite part. But my favorite part, it sounds a little weird, but my favorite part is all of it. And the reason is it didn't just kind of do one thing. It didn't just do two things. I did write a book about this, 13 years ago, and I had, 24 things we need to do, and this bill does 23 of them. So it does transportation, help people get access to more affordable cars. It helps research and development. It helps deployment. It helps siting. It helps people get access to energy efficiency in their homes and heat pumps. It does all of these things. So it's not just a bumper sticker, it's actually a blueprint for the survival of the United States and the ability of our kids to have a meaningful future. That is a tremendous achievement. So I am so proud of what Patty has done and President Biden. And I don't know how to extol it more. By the way, they pulled a rabbit out of the hat to actually get this bill through. And Patty was instrumental for getting that job done. People need to understand what we've got. We've got a world-class senator here who knows how to get things done. That's why he's in the leadership. We've got to simply continue that history of success that she has had. Now, I want to mention, you mentioned teamwork. I started thinking about teams when you asked that question. I would just say this, Tiffany Smiley is the worst possible candidate at the most important time of the most beautiful state in American history, and I'll tell you why. It's one thing to be a climate denier in Texas. It's one thing to be a climate denier in Mississippi. It is 50 times worse to be a climate denier in the state of Washington, because we are the evergreen state. Today, we are the most committed state to giving our children a future and defeating climate change with the worst potential candidate running for Senate, Tiffany Smiley. And for the state of Washington to send her as a senator would be sort of like us all deciding to root for the Houston Astros. That is not what we are about in the state of Washington, and we cannot send her. That's what I think.
All right, thank you, Governor. It's interesting because you're starting to get a theme here, which is like, the other side, your opponent, it's all kind of about fear and what may happen. We're talking about what's happening. We're talking about things that are getting done, and I think this next question by Ken Letterman kind of plays into that. I mean, when you look at the Inflation Reduction Act and the amount of dollars that are coming into Washington, it's incredible the opportunity you have as a team to work. So I think this is a good question too about making sure that we're really working with all communities on that. So the IRA includes historic investments for environmental justice. How will you work with community colors and tribal nations, which are such the true fabric of this state, on the implementation of the IRA?
That is a really good question, and one of the things that my staff and I are committed to, as many as of these are grants and other kinds of proposals, to make sure we are really helping communities who often get left behind. Because justice is critical when we talk about climate, and making sure that everybody has access to it and it supports people equally. You just asked about the Inflation Reduction Act, but let me go back and mention the infrastructure bill. Because one of the things we really focused on in the infrastructure bill was making sure we were helping low-income communities get access to transportation projects that were environmentally safe. And you know and I know that those are the communities that most often have the most pollution. Jay mentioned the school bus bill that I actually, Kamala Harris actually started it when she became president, or vice president. When she became vice president, I took over that bill, and we got it included in the bill because it impacts low-income income communities. Those kids are riding to school on diesel buses, which are polluting and hurt, asthma and everything else as a result of that. So the Clean Bus Act that we passed, those new buses that will be run on electricity are going to be first going to our low-income communities to help them with the pollution that they exist with. So it's part of our thought of everything we pass is how do we make sure we are treating everybody equally, and especially helping low-income communities and communities of color.
Thank you, Senator. Governor, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, a couple things. Look, this whole bill federally follows the Washington model, which makes sure that we embrace justice and equity in this. As you know, in our Washington state, we've assured we get 35% of investment goes to disproportionately affected communities, 10% to our tribal communities. And the federal legislation is chock-a-block with efforts to kind of follow that precept. That's the thing that kind of gets the headlines. But I want to point to another thing about this bill. It helps rural, small-town Washington state big time. Look, we want to have economic development in Wenatchee, where we got electric buses. In Moses Lake, where 2 new battery companies just got $100 million because of work of Patty Murray to start new battery manufacturing of a whole different type of silicon anode battery. In Moses Lake, Washington. In Bellingham, Washington, where we're making solar panels. In the ports of Vancouver and Longview, where we are bringing in, with good labor longshore, bringing these wind turbines in and putting it up with local machinists and iron workers. We're putting people to work everywhere in the state of Washington, not just in Seattle. And that's the beauty of this revolution in clean energy. So I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah, and I want to add one other thing. We always talk about climate action and actions we need to take, all on board, but we also have the effects of climate change right now. With droughts, forest fires, we've all seen it. So in the infrastructure bill and in the IRA bill, we really focused on resiliency. How do we make sure that as we are feeling the effects of this, we are taking care of some of those challenges? I was just up with Secretary Pete Buttigieg up in Wenatchee last week, where we, in the transportation bill, put into grant funding for resilient projects. We just got the biggest grant ever up there to make sure that we are giving people who live in Wenatchee, close to the forest fires, another route out in case of a forest fire with the Capitol Loop project that's up there. Similar to Mount Vernon, where we built flood wall protection for that community because of the droughts. And these are critical parts of the investments that we need to make as we move to those exciting new clean energy projects and develop them right here in the state of Washington.
Well, thank you. And I think that kind of speaks to, this is, we talk about climate, denying climate. I mean, this is tough stuff, and I think you look in this room, so many people here, even REI that's really going on carbon neutral and really focusing on this. It takes that team, and it is a real challenge on multiple parts of the environment. So I think this next question kind of speaks to that. It's from Steve Smith with Outdoor Experiential Consulting. And can you kind of speak to the importance of salmon restoration, and how does protecting wilderness and wild and scenic river fit into climate resilience?
Well, as I always say, salmon is part of our culture, it's part of our economy, it's part of our tribal treaties, and we have a responsibility as senators to do everything we can to make sure we keep our salmon and don't be the leaders that are sitting around not doing nothing and losing that species. I take this seriously. And we, for a great example is the Howard Hansen Dam project that I just got $220 million for, that will restore one of the longest runs we have for salmon. And I was just up there with Tacoma Utilities, some of the tribes, and others as we kicked off this project that is going to really help us with salmon restoration. Working with many of you in this room on the Pacific Coastal Salmon Fund to make sure we are fixing those ecosystems, making sure we're doing things in the transportation bill again. Looking at some of our culverts, and as we all know, they are big impediments to our salmon to be able to get back up the streams and spawn. And we have a major investment grant program in the infrastructure bill to begin to restore all of those culverts. There are thousands of them in King County alone. That is going to make an incredible difference on our ability to restore our salmon runs. Is there more work we need to do? Absolutely. And I can tell you the governor and I have spent multiple hours trying to figure out the best path forward. We've got a lot of work to do to make sure we have our transportation systems ready, that we make sure that we have energy replacement ready, transmission ready, so that if one day we have to remove the Snake River dams, we're ready to do it. Right now, we're not ready to do it, and we don't have the support in Congress, that's for sure. But the way we get there is to plan what we need to do to be able to take the steps to get to that point. And the governor and I are both committed on that.
Thank you, Senator. Governor?
We have to understand the salmon in our state are just right in our hearts. Orca will not survive without salmon, and they're very close on the edge. And we have to understand we're doing a lot of work in our state. We're removing culverts. We're building more inshore habitat. We're working on stormwater. We're doing all this work. But all of it will be for naught if we do not defeat climate change. Because if the water becomes so boiling that salmon cannot survive in it, it doesn't matter what we do, salmon are not going to make it to the next generation, to Liam, when Liam is my age. So salmon have one course of survival, and that is to defeat climate change. And given how embedded salmon is in our legacy, in our lifestyle, and our fishing, I cannot understand how Tiffany Smiley is against saving these salmon. Because if you... She said they're just a fish. Well, you know, they're more than a fish. They're our heart, they're our lifeblood. They're wrapped around Washington's history and our emotional well-being, just like apples are. And for her to not understand that shows she is totally out of touch with the heartbeat of Washington State. And we know that this is a threat today. We lost like 20,000 salmon. It was too hot in the Columbia River for them to survive already. We need to make it too hot for Tiffany Smiley when we vote to make sure she does not go there and throw salmon right out the window, which she will do, because she will do whatever Mitch McConnell tells her to do.
Well, thank you, Governor. And it reminds me of every year we go to Carkey Park, and my family watch those salmon go up that stream. And I think it'd be good to see Tiffany Smiley, see if that's just a normal fish that can do that. I think it's a good segue for this question. I think it's really important. I mean, I think you framed this well, Governor, that this is the election of our lifetime. And frankly, Senator Murray, you don't need to be doing this. You have a history of leadership and have had some success, but you're doing this because you fight on behalf of Washington, your constituents. But from your perspective and what you've seen, what are the most important things for people really to know about your opponent when it comes to climate?
Let me answer that question. She's way too gracious. She is. I watched the debate. I thought she was awfully gracious given the outrageous thing. Look, there's legitimate questions about the best way to build a clean energy economy and defeat climate change. There's all kinds of legitimate policies that people could argue are the best policies. And arguing about those policies is both legitimate and understandable. But an outright refusal to stand up for the heartbeat of Washington State against climate change, which Tiffany Smiley has said, I will do nothing about climate change, that is unforgivable. There is no way you can say a senator can effectively represent Washington and ignore the children of Washington and the salmon of Washington and the orca of Washington. There's no reason that that can be forgiven. So that's the fundamental problem with this candidacy, that she is ignoring this fundamental threat to the state of Washington. She hasn't proposed a different route that might be 10% different than Senator Murray. She's just AWOL. She is not on the playing field at all of climate change. We need a fighter on climate change, not a defeatist. She is a defeatist on climate change. She will allow climate change to steal the future of our children, and we will not abide that. Now that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Governor.
There's one thing I know, and Jay knows it too. When you want to get something done, you don't give up or not try. You go to work and you work hard every day until you get it done. How many people in this room worked with us on Wild Sky? 7 years? 9 years? It was 9 years. And we didn't give up, and we kept working. Climate change. We have worked for a long time to even have it come up on the floor of the Senate. You don't give up. I will not give up. I will keep fighting. I love this state. I love what we have. I want my grandchildren to have it, and I will not give up, and I need your help to make sure I can continue to do that.
Thank you, Senator. You know, and knowing both of you pretty well over the years, one thing that has always struck me in kind of growing is how you always put family first. And I know that's so important to you as parents and grandparents. And so it amazes me that you keep that leadership, that you keep fighting every day for us. And so I think in a time sometimes when climate can be challenging and tough, and I know having a daughter right now at an age where you're trying to talk to her about it can be a challenging conversation. But Senator Murray, what, as you look in the next 5 to 10 years, really gives you hope? What, when you think about the opportunity that you have to make that, I've been on OT, that long flight to DC, she flies coach, everybody, let me tell you. What gives you that hope and gets you excited about the future?
That's so easy. It's the young people I meet. They understand what they want for their future, and they don't want us to give up. I mean, the most passionate people I have met are young kids in school, in high school, who they just look you right in the eye and they know the impacts of this. They are not going to give up, and it's their future, and they give me the energy and hope and commitment to keep fighting.
Thank you, Senator. Please, Governor.
For Senator Murray, it's the young people. For me, it's the old people. Because the old people are going to come out and vote against Tiffany Smiley and not allow her to destroy the future of our grandchildren. And I believe that's what folks my age need to do in the next couple of weeks, and will do in the next couple of weeks, because we know what the stakes are involved. Now that's the trite answer, but I'm going to give you the real answer now. What really gives me hope is we have to understand the positive things that are going on in building clean energy technologies to serve us all. Look at what's just going on in the last 3 months in the state of Washington. 2 brand new silicon anode battery companies are going into Moses Lake that are going to hire hundreds of people with good paying jobs to build batteries that can extend the range of your electric car and your electric bus and our electric ferries by 12 to 20%. Think of that, and we are doing that with the innovative geniuses in Washington State. We just flew the first commercially adopted electric plane last month, ever in human history, from this location. We are building in the Soto region the most powerful fuel cell engine in the world that can actually power a locomotive. All of this technological innovation is going on right now. We've brought down the cost of solar by 85% in the last 10 years, and wind is coming down 40%. So all of this should give us the optimism that we had when we decided to revolutionize aerospace. We should have that same level of optimism about the ability of Washington State. If we get Patty Murray keep helping us out from the federal level, we're going to do this in clean energy, and we're doing it.
Thank you, Governor. Actually, I'd like to kind of move to some closing thoughts. You know, this is a critical time, and I'd love to hear Senator Murray kind of, you know, in the last 2 weeks of this election season, you know, what can we do to support you And just let us know any kind of final thoughts as you go on this kind of journey, because we are all here to help you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much to all of you being here. Thank you about being at my back. Thank you for caring about our state. Thank you for caring about climate. Thank you for caring about the future. Thank you for being people who do not give up and fight with us. It means everything to me. I would just say to all of you is that it's too easy to think, oh, Patty will be fine. Mitch McConnell just today put in $1.25 million for the next 10 days on the television. So you can turn that off. I am. But I'm telling you, they are sending money here. It is coming from an unbelievable place, including the Trump administration, including Betsy DeVos's family, and including a lot of other people whose names you'd recognize, because they want to take this seat. Why do they want to take this seat? Because Mitch McConnell wants the majority. And he wants to be able to repeal all that great legislation we do. And he wants to jam our courts with judges who I assure you will not rule on our side. So we have a responsibility in our state to tell everybody to vote. We have our ballots. Every day is election day now. Do not let anybody leave that ballot sitting on the counter. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, make phone calls. As Derek Kilmer keeps saying, which I love, don't wring your hands, use your hands.
Great.
Text, phone, call, knock on doors, vote.
Thank you so much, Senator Murray. And I'm going to call you, I hope you don't get offended, Coach Inslee right now, because I think we all need a little bit of coaching
There we
these
go.
last 10 days. Anything you'd like to say to us to kind of make sure we get some marching orders to get out there, Governor?
I want to thank everybody here personally for being here tonight. I know we're going to do great work in the next several days. I'll just leave on this one. Trudy and I had our fifth grandchild about 8 weeks ago. We're expecting a little fella here in just a few weeks. And I'll be damned if I replace a climate champion, Patty Murray, with a no-count, ineffective, inexperienced climate denier, Tiffany Smiley. We are a better state than that. Our children deserve to be protected, not sold down the river. And we are not going to allow Tiffany Smiley to sell our kids down the river. We're going to re-elect Patty Murray. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you. I mean, this is a moment in time. I want to thank REI. I want to thank all of you for coming, but now the work really starts. This is a critical 12 days. We have two leaders here who make Washington what it is, and we have a leader right here in Senator Murray who needs our support, needs our help. Use those hands. Text, call, knock. It is time. Thank you all for coming.